The inky expanse of space stretched out before Lieutenant Jackson Maddox as he piloted his Raptor ZX fighter through the Kuiper Belt. It was a routine patrol, scanning for any signs of activity along Earth's outer defenses. Jackson, a seasoned pilot of the Earth Defense Force, found a certain tranquility out here amidst the quiet dance of asteroids and planetoids. But tranquility was shattered in an instant when his radar lit up with unknown signatures. Jackson's heart raced as he activated long-range scanners, the first human to lay eyes on the approaching alien vessels. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Sleek angular crafts that seemed to slice through the very fabric of space. Earth Command, this is Raptor 1. Jackson radioed in, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. We have contact. Unknown vessels on approach vector. Requesting orders. The response was immediate. Raptor 1, this is Command. Attempt communication on all frequencies. Do not, I repeat, do not engage unless threatened. Jackson acknowledged, his fingers already dancing across the communication array, broadcasting the universal greeting on every channel. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a burst of static and a voice, speaking in a language no human had ever heard before. The ships were close now, near enough for Jackson to make out details, the strange shimmering of their hull materials, the pulsing glow of their propulsion. He tried again to communicate, this time using the established first contact protocols, sequences of prime numbers, atomic constants, mathematical truths that should be universal. A new message came through, not in words, but in vivid images projected directly into his mind. He saw towering crystalline cities, vast ships that dwarfed his own, and star maps of a scale he could scarcely comprehend. Then came an image of Earth, and a sense of assessment, of judgment. Jackson realized with sudden, chilling clarity that this was no chance encounter. They had sought Earth out. Abruptly, the images ceased and Jackson found himself staring at the alien ships with newfound understanding. These beings, these Zethans as they called themselves, had technology far beyond anything Earth possessed, and their intentions were far from benign. Command, the aliens are called Zethans, Jackson reported, his mind still reeling. There. He never got to finish his sentence. In a heartbeat, the Zethan ships opened fire, lances of searing energy slicing through space. Jackson reacted on instinct, throwing his Raptor into a deep dive, even as he watched the rest of his squadron vanish in blooms of fire. We are under attack. He yelled into the comm, already pushing his ship to its limits. The Zethans pursued, their weapons carving through his defenses like a hot knife through butter. Alarms blared and sparks flew as Jackson fought to evade, to survive. But it was a losing battle. With a final, shuddering impact, his engines cut out, his controls went dead. Jackson could only watch helplessly as his fighter, trailing smoke and debris, was caught in the gravitational pull of a nearby planet. The Zethans didn't bother to finish him off, already moving on towards Earth. As his ship plummeted through the atmosphere of the unknown world, Jackson's thoughts were a whirl of desperation and determination. Earth was in danger, and he was the only one who knew the scale of the threat. He had to find a way to warn them, to fight back. But first, he had to survive. The planet's surface rushed up to meet him, a stark vista of red rock and swirling dust. Jackson braced himself, gritting his teeth as the ship slammed into the ground, metal screaming and tearing. His body jolted by the impact until finally, mercifully, everything went black. He didn't know how long he drifted in that darkness. Minutes, hours, a lifetime. But gradually, sensation returned. The taste of blood, the acrid smell of smoke, and a voice, distant and echoing, calling to him in a language he couldn't understand. With a Herculean effort, Jackson forced his eyes open. Blinking against the harsh light, a figure stood over him, silhouetted against the alien sky. As his vision cleared, he saw her. A Zethan, but unlike the aggressive images he had seen. Her features were soft, her eyes filled with concern. Who are you?" Jackson croaked, his throat raw from smoke. "I am Zyra," she replied in perfect English. "And you, human, have much to learn about the Zethans." She offered him a hand, an offer of aid, of alliance. Jackson hesitated only a moment before grasping it, allowing her to pull him from the wreckage. He didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was crystal clear. This was only the beginning. The desolate landscape stretched out before Jackson as he limped away from the wreckage of his ship, leaning heavily on Zyra for support. The Zethan rebel was strong, her grip on his arm firm as she guided him towards a rocky outcropping. "We need to get under cover," she said, her voice low and urgent. "The Empire's patrols will be searching for survivors." Jackson nodded, wincing as each step sent a fresh jolt of pain through his battered body. As they walked, he studied Zyra, trying to reconcile the being beside him with the images of the Zethans that had been burned into his mind. She was tall and lithe, her skin a pale lavender hue that seemed to shimmer in the alien sunlight. Her eyes, a vivid amber, held a depth of intelligence and emotion that Jackson found both fascinating and unsettling. "Why are you helping me?" he asked as they ducked into the shelter of the rocks. "Your people just tried to kill me, to invade my world." Zyra's expression darkened. "Not all Zethans are like those in the Empire," she said. "There are those of us who oppose their ways, who believe in peace and cooperation rather than conquest." She helped Jackson sit, propping him up against the cool stone before moving to check the perimeter. Jackson watched her go, his mind spinning with questions. An alien rebel, a dissident from within the ranks of the invaders. It was a lot to process. As Zyra returned, Jackson struggled to sit up straighter. "My people, Earth, we have to warn them. The Zethans, your empire, they're coming. We have to stop them." "It won't be easy," Zyra said, kneeling beside him. "The Empire is vast, their technology advanced, but there may be a way." Over the next few hours, as Jackson recovered his strength, Zyra told him of the resistance, of the growing movement of Zethans who sought to overthrow the tyrannical rule of the Empire. She spoke of secret bases, of daring raids, of the hope for a better future. In turn, Jackson shared stories of Earth, of humanity's resilience in the face of adversity. He told her of the wars they had fought, the disasters they had overcome, the unbreakable spirit that had carried them to the stars. As they talked, a bond began to form between them, a bridge spanning the vast gulf of space and culture that separated their worlds. Jackson found himself drawn to Zyra's quiet strength, her fierce determination. And in Jackson's tales of human courage, Zyra saw a reflection of her own people's struggle. "We're not so different, your people and mine," she said softly. "We both fight for what we believe in." Jackson met her gaze, seeing in her eyes a glimmer of something more than just alliance, more than just shared purpose. But before he could dwell on it, the moment was shattered by the distant roar of engines. "Imperial scouts," Zyra hissed, leaping to her feet. "We have to move." She helped Jackson up, and together they set off across the barren terrain, seeking shelter and concealment. As they walked, Jackson's mind raced with possibilities. Zyra's resistance could be the key to stopping the Zethan invasion, to saving Earth. But first, they had to survive. The days that followed were a blur of harsh sunlight and cold nights, of scavenged meals and furtive movement. Zyra taught Jackson how to find water in the arid landscape, how to avoid the planet's dangerous predators. In return, he shared his knowledge of tactics and strategy, the skills he had learned in the Earth Defense Force. They made an unlikely team, the human soldier and the Zethan rebel, but with each passing day their bond grew stronger. Jackson found himself relying on Zyra's quick thinking and alien insights, while Zyra came to trust in Jackson's unwavering determination. But even as they grew closer, the specter of the Zethan Empire loomed over them. They knew that every moment spent on this desolate world was a moment that the invasion fleet drew closer to Earth. One night, huddled around a small fire in the shelter of a cave, Jackson turned to Zyra. "We can't keep running forever," he said. "We need a plan, a way to strike back at the Empire." Zyra met his gaze, the firelight dancing in her amber eyes. "There may be a way," she said slowly, "but it will be dangerous. We'll need help." "The resistance," Jackson said, understanding dawning. Zyra nodded. "They have ships, resources. With their help, and with what you know of Earth's defenses, we might stand a chance." Jackson reached out, grasping Zyra's hand in his own. "Then that's what we'll do," he said, his voice ringing with determination. "We'll find your resistance, and together we'll stop the Empire. For both our peoples." In that moment, hand in hand, human and Zethan, they knew that the fight ahead would be the hardest they had ever faced. but they also knew that they would face it together, united by a bond that transcended the vastness of space and the differences of their worlds. The hidden base of the Zethan resistance was a far cry from the gleaming cities and towering spires of the Empire. Nestled deep within a series of caverns on a remote moon, it was a place of shadows and secrets, where rebels and outcasts gathered to plot the downfall of the tyrannical regime. As Jackson and Zira stepped into the main chamber, they were greeted by a sea of faces, Zethans from all walks of life united by a common cause. At the center of the room stood a tall, imposing figure, his eyes sharp and his bearing regal. "Welcome," he said, his voice deep and resonant, "to the heart of the resistance. I am Orin, once a general of the Empire, now a leader of the Free Zethans." Jackson stepped forward, meeting Orin's gaze with a steady one of his own. "I am Lieutenant Jackson Maddox of the Earth Defense Force," he said. "I come seeking an alliance against our common enemy." Orin studied him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, to Jackson's surprise, he smiled. "You are a brave one, human," he said. "To come so far, to risk so much. Your kind has a strength that the Empire underestimates." He turned to Zira, his smile widening. "And you, my dear Zira, I knew your defiance would lead you to great things." Zira returned the smile, but there was a sadness in her eyes. "I only wish it had not come at such a cost, old friend." Orin nodded, his expression turning somber. "We have all lost much to the Empire's cruelty. But together, we may yet reclaim what was taken." He gestured for them to follow, leading them deeper into the base. As they walked, he introduced them to the key members of the resistance. There was Zek, Zira's brother, a brilliant technician who had designed many of the Resistance's weapons and ships, and Ryla, a fierce warrior with a quick wit and a quicker blade. But it was the technology that truly took Jackson's breath away. The Resistance had ships and weapons that rivaled those of the Empire, built in secret and powered by a strange, pulsing energy that Zek called Etherin. "It's a rare substance," he explained, his eyes alight with enthusiasm, "found only in the deepest reaches of space. It has properties we're only beginning to understand, but its potential is limitless." Over the next few days, Jackson worked closely with the Resistance, sharing his knowledge of Earth's defenses and learning in turn about Zethan tactics and technology. He trained with their fighters, teaching them human combat techniques and learning a few alien moves of his own. And always, Zira was at his side, a constant presence that both comforted and excited him. In the quiet moments between planning sessions and training drills, they would steal away to explore the hidden corners of the base, learning each other's stories and secrets. Jackson told her of his childhood on Earth, of the family he had left behind to join the Defense Force. Zira in turn shared tales of growing up in the shadow of the Empire, of the whispered stories of rebellion that had sparked her own defiance. As they talked, the bond between them deepened, growing from a spark of attraction into something more profound. Jackson found himself drawn to Zira's quick mind and fierce spirit, while she was captivated by his unwavering courage and compassion. But even as they grew closer, the specter of war loomed over them. The Empire's invasion fleet was drawing nearer to Earth with each passing day, and time was running out. It was Orin who proposed the plan, a daring gambit that would strike at the heart of the Empire's war machine. "We have learned," he said, his voice grave, "that the Empire's invasion plans are being coordinated from a central military base on the planet Zethryx Prime. If we can infiltrate that base and disrupt their command structure, it could give Earth the chance it needs to mount a defense." Jackson and Zira exchanged a glance, a wealth of understanding passing between them. They knew the risks, knew the odds stacked against them, but they also knew that they had no choice. "We'll do it," Jackson said, his voice ringing with determination. "For Earth, and for all the free peoples of the galaxy." The preparations were made in a flurry of activity, every member of the Resistance working tirelessly to give Jackson and Zira the best chance of success. False identities were crafted, and information was gathered, every scrap of intelligence analyzed for any advantage it could provide. And through it all, Jackson and Zira clung to each other, drawing strength and comfort from their bond. On the eve of their departure, as they lay entwined in Zira's quarters, Jackson found the words that had been building in his heart. "Zira," he whispered, his fingers tracing the delicate lines of her face. I love you. No matter what happens, I need you to know that." Zyra's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, her smile tremulous, but filled with joy. "And I love you, Jackson Maddox," she said softly. "In this life and beyond, I am yours." They sealed their love with a kiss, a promise and a prayer all in one. And as the first light of dawn crept into the room, they rose to face their destiny together. The resistance had given them hope, had given them a chance. Now it was up to them to seize it, for the sake of all they held dear. The infiltration of Zethryx Prime awaited, and with it, the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. The Zethan military base loomed before Jackson and Zyra, a sprawling complex of gleaming towers and fortified walls. Getting inside would be no easy feat, but with the information and disguises provided by the resistance, they had a chance. Jackson adjusted his stolen uniform, the unfamiliar fabric itching against his skin. Beside him, Zyra was almost unrecognizable, her vibrant features hidden beneath layers of cosmetics and prosthetics. "Remember," she murmured as they approached the base's main gate, "you are Commander Zaylan, and I am your aide, Lissa. We've been summoned here to assist with the invasion preparations." Jackson nodded, squaring his shoulders and adopting an air of Zethan arrogance. The gate guards scanned their falsified ID badges, and for a heart-stopping moment, Jackson feared their deception would be discovered. But the guards waved them through, and they stepped into the belly of the beast. Inside, the base was a hive of activity. Zethan soldiers and technicians hurried about their tasks, preparing ships and weapons for the coming assault on Earth. Jackson and Zyra moved among them, gathering what information they could, planting the seeds of dissent where possible. It was a delicate dance, a constant balance between maintaining their cover and pushing their agenda. They attended strategy meetings, offering suggestions designed to subtly undermine the invasion efforts. They sought out those who might be sympathetic to the resistance, carefully feeling out potential allies. But even as they worked, the strain began to show. Each day brought new challenges, new risks of discovery. Jackson found himself constantly on edge, his nerves frayed by the unending deception. Only in the stolen moments he shared with Zyra did he find any peace. In the quiet of their quarters, they would shed their disguises and their fears, finding solace in each other's presence. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," Jackson confessed one night, his head resting in Zyra's lap. The constant lies, the fear of being caught. Zyra ran her fingers through his hair, her touch gentle and soothing. "I know," she said softly, "but we must persevere. Too much depends on our success." She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his in a gesture of intimacy that transcended the boundaries of their species. In that moment, Jackson drew strength from her, from the bond they shared. But even that moment was shattered by the sudden blare of alarms. They leaped to their feet, hastily donning their disguises as the base erupted into chaos. Had they been discovered? Had the resistance been compromised? They raced through the corridors, following the flow of soldiers towards the central command. There, on the main view screen, was a sight that made Jackson's blood run cold. Earth ships, a ragtag fleet cobbled together from every available vessel, were engaging the Zethan invasion force at the edge of the solar system. It was a brave stand, but a futile one. The Earth ships were outgunned and outmatched, falling one by one to the Zethan onslaught. "We have to do something," Jackson whispered, his voice tight with desperation. "We can't let them die." Zyra's hand found his, squeezing tight. "We will," she said, her eyes hard with determination. "But we have to be smart about it." They watched, hearts in their throats, as the battle unfolded. Then, at a signal from Zyra, they made their move. Slipping away from the command center, they headed for the base's main power core. If they could disable it, even temporarily, it would give the Earth fleet a fighting chance. But as they reached the core, they found themselves face to face with a squad of Zethan guards. Their cover, it seemed, had been blown. "Traitors," the lead guard snarled, leveling his weapon at them. "You will pay for your treachery." Jackson and Zyra exchanged a glance, a wealth of understanding passing between them. Then, as one, they charged. It was a fierce battle, fought with all the skill and desperation they could muster. Jackson fought like a man possessed, his human strength and agility a match for Zethan training. Beside him, Zyra was a whirlwind of deadly grace, her movements fluid and precise. But even as they fought, Jackson knew it wasn't enough. There were too many guards, too many weapons trained on them. They needed a miracle. And then, impossibly, they got one. The ground shook as explosions rocked the base, the sounds of battle suddenly much closer than the distant engagement on the view screen. The resistance had launched their attack, and the base's defenses were crumbling. In the chaos, Jackson and Zira found their opening. With a final, desperate push, they broke through the guards and reached the power core. Zira's fingers flew over the controls, and with a final, triumphant keystroke, the core went dark. Alarms blared and emergency lights flickered as the base was plunged into darkness. In the confusion, Jackson and Zira made their escape, fighting their way through the crumbling corridors and out into the open air. Around them, the resistance ships were landing, disgorging fighters who joined the fray with a roar of defiance. In the skies above, the Earth fleet, bolstered by the sudden loss of power to the Zethan ships, was rallying. The tide, impossibly, was turning. Jackson and Zira stood amidst the chaos, hand in hand, watching as the battle shifted. They had done it. Against all odds, they had struck a blow against the Empire, had given Earth a chance. But the fight was far from over. As the dust settled, and the resistance began to take control of the base, Jackson and Zira knew that this was only the beginning. The real challenge, the fight for the future of both their worlds, was still to come. But they would face it together, human and Zethan, bound by a love and a purpose that could overcome any obstacle. In that moment, as the fires of battle raged around them, they knew that nothing would ever be the same. The universe had shifted, and they were at the center of it all. The infiltration had been a success, but the real work, the fight for peace and freedom, was just beginning. The battle raged across the stars, the forces of Earth and the Zethan resistance facing off against the might of the Empire. In the skies above Earth, Jackson led a daring assault, his Raptor fighter weaving through the enemy ships with a skill born of desperation and determination. "All fighters, concentrate your fire on the Lieb dreadnought," he commanded, his voice crackling over the comm. "We need to take out their command ship." Around him, the Earth fighters swarmed like angry hornets, their weapons blazing as they swooped and dove. The Zethan ships were powerful, but they were slow and cumbersome compared to the agile human craft. On the ground, the battle was no less fierce. Zira, Zek, and Orin led the resistance forces in a daring ground assault, striking at the heart of the Empire's planetary defenses. They fought with a ferocity born of a lifetime of oppression, each blow a cry for freedom. Zira was a whirlwind of energy, her blaster spitting fire as she charged the enemy lines. At her side, Zek's technical expertise proved invaluable, his hacked enemy drones turning on their masters with devastating effect. And Orin, the once general, now rebel leader, was a force of nature, his strategic brilliance guiding the resistance to victory after victory. Under his command, they took control of key installations, cutting off the Empire's supply lines and communications. But even as they fought, they knew it was not enough. The Empire's forces were too vast, their weapons too powerful. For every ship they destroyed, for every base they captured, the Zethans seemed to have 3 more in reserve. Jackson, flying high above the fray, saw the tide turning against them. He saw the Earth ships dwindling, saw the Resistance's positions being overrun. And he knew, with a certainty that settled like a weight in his heart, that there was only one way this could end. "Zira," he said over the private channel, his voice rough with emotion. "It's not enough. We can't win this. Not like this." There was a pause, a hitch of breath that spoke volumes. "I know," Zira replied, her voice steady despite the chaos raging around her. "What do you suggest?" Jackson closed his eyes, seeing again the pulsing glow of the Etherin cores, remembering Zek's words about their untapped potential. "The Etherin," he said. "If we can detonate it inside their main ship, the chain reaction should take out most of their fleet." "But Jackson," Zira's voice was strained, "the only way to do that would be—" "I know," Jackson said softly, "but it's the only way. You know that." There was a long silence, broken only by the sounds of battle. Then, "I'm coming with you." "No." Jackson's response was immediate, visceral. "Zira, you can't. Your people need you. The Resistance needs you. And I need you." Zira's voice was fierce, unyielding. "I told you, Jackson, in this life and beyond. Where you go, I go." Jackson wanted to argue, wanted to plead with her to reconsider. but he knew it was futile. Zyra's determination, her love, was as unshakable as his own. "All right," he said at last, his voice rough with unshed tears. "Together, then." The plan was simple, born of desperation and a love that transcended worlds. Jackson and Zyra, in a stolen Zethan fighter, would breach the defenses of the Empire's main ship. They would make their way to the Etherin core. And there, they would end it. It was a mission with no return, a sacrifice that would echo through the ages. But as they flew, hand in hand, hearts beating as one, they knew no fear. They had each other, and that was enough. They breached the ship's defenses with a skill that spoke of their combined experience, human cunning and Zethan precision working in perfect harmony. They fought their way through the corridors, each step a testament to their resolve. And when at last they stood before the pulsing heart of the Etherin core, they shared one final embrace, one final kiss. "I love you," they whispered in unison, the words of vow and a benediction. And then, together, they fired. The explosion was cataclysmic, a blinding flash that lit the stars like a second sun. The Empire's ship disintegrated, and with it, the heart of their war machine. The chain reaction spread, engulfing ship after ship, until the skies above Earth were cleared, the threat vanquished. In the aftermath, as the peoples of Earth and the newly freed Zethans celebrated their improbable victory, they would tell stories of Jackson Maddox and Zyra, the human and the Zethan who had given everything for the cause of freedom. They had come from different worlds, had been born of different suns, but in their love, in their sacrifice, they had forged a bond that would endure for eternity. In the annals of history, their names would be forever linked, a shining example of what could be achieved when the barriers of race and culture were overcome, when love and courage were allowed to flourish. They had turned the tide, had brought peace to a galaxy on the brink of endless war. And though they were gone, their legacy would endure, a beacon of hope for generations yet to come. For in the end, it was not the might of weapons or the strength of armies that had saved them. It was the power of the human spirit, the indomitable will that had brought two souls together across the vastness of space. It was love, pure and simple, a force greater than any empire, more enduring than the stars themselves. And in that love, Jackson and Zyra would live forever, their story a testament to the unbreakable bonds that unite us all.